It's going to be a big game on Big Noon when the number one team of the land, the Texas Longhorns, come in to Columbus. They come into the Horseshoe to take on the third-ranked defending national champion Buckeyes of Ohio State. This is the game before the game at the end of the year for the Scarlet and Gray. There are so many storylines surrounding this one. It is a rematch of last year's national semifinal when the Buckeyes stood strong down by the goal line. Jack Sawyer taking it all the way back to propel Ohio State to the national championship game against Notre Dame, where they were able to win. Boy, it's, for how much schedules are made in advance, to be able to have a year where these two teams met in the Final Four and then they open the season with this type of game, it's maybe not something you see every day, but I am glad. Sign me up for more of these Big Ten SEC battles, especially to kick things off in week number one. Look, there's a lot of different directions that we could start this thing off when you talk about this game. But I think there's one thing that a lot of people are really starting with when they talk about this matchup, and I'll do the same, and it's the quarterbacks. Of course, Arch Manning. He is the anointed. He is the next generation of greatness, literally. He is the next generation of Manning. Started a couple of games last year, but now this is his first opportunity to show the world exactly what he can do, exactly if he can really live up to that hype. And boy, is there a lot of hype, Heisman type of conversation early on for Mr. Manning. But you look to the other side of the coin for Ohio State, for as highly recruited and for as highly regarded as Arch Manning is, you look to the other side. Julian Saint's a pretty good quarterback himself. He was a five-star coming out of high school. Of course, he sat last year and redshirted at Ohio State, but he's got a lot of talent himself. When I look at both of these quarterbacks within this game, and then I look at how the coaching staffs, the respective coaching staffs, are going to approach this thing, I think it's all about letting these quarterbacks be the point guard. All right, you got to do everything to be able to help them out, because for as talented as they are, this is still a pretty big environment. This is still a pretty big situation. Whichever quarterback kind of handles, I would say the bright lights, but it's being played at noon, but you get the general idea. Whichever quarterback kind of handles the environment, the bigness, might you say, of this game, I think is going to have a better chance to win this football game. And both these quarterbacks are going to end up playing the point guard role. I don't think, that these coaching staffs, are going to put these guys into a situation where they're going, even though this is a big game, but in today's day and age of college football, a game like this isn't the be-all and the end-all that it used to be. I think both of these coaching staffs are going to do their best to put both of these quarterbacks in a situation to succeed and help them with what they have around them. Now, for as much as we want to talk about the quarterbacks, there's one group in front of the quarterbacks that I think the more I really dive into this game is going to determine the outcome, I believe, when all is said and done, and that's the offensive line. Like, for example, Texas has one offensive lineman returning from last season. Guys went to the National Football League. Same Ohio State is losing a handful of guys from last year's national championship team. Ohio State got a couple of transfers. Sounds like one of them is going to start in Phillip Daniels. But whichever offensive line I think is able to protect these quarterbacks, keep these quarterbacks on schedule, because they're young guys. They're going out there and they're playing in a huge environment, and they're going to, I think, need all the help that they can get despite how talented they are. I look specifically, this is a Big Ten channel after all, I look specifically at Ohio State, and I think this. They need this offensive line to play well, because Julian Saint being that point guard, get the ball to number 4. Do whatever you got to do to be able to get the ball to Jeremiah Smith. I know they got Carnell Tate on this team. They got Brandon Innes on this team. They got Max Clare on this team. I think these are probably the best weapons in college football. But you look to the other side, that's going to be across the line of scrimmage from this Ohio State offensive line, and that's where things maybe get a little bit hairy. Because, man, this Texas defense is as good as it gets. It is the number 2 defense in the country, according to PFF. PFF also has the Texas linebackers and the Texas secondary as number 1 in college football. This is going to be a tremendous challenge right out of the gate for young Julian Sayin. Like, you look at Colin Simmons coming off the edge, 14 tackles for loss and 9 sacks. He is going to be a big challenge, potentially a big problem for these Ohio State tackles. You look at Anthony Hill, 113 tackles, 17 tackles for loss, and 8 sacks last season. Timing and rhythm is going to be a huge thing for Ohio State. They need to do everything in their power to keep this offense on schedule, because if those two aforementioned guys that I just talking about, Simmons and Hill, if they are able to get consistent pressure on Julian Sayin, rattle the young quarterback, not allow that time to get down the field to Jeremiah Smith to be able to make plays, the best player in college football, to get it to Carnell Tate, to get it to Brandon Innes, to get it to the rest of this football team, that's, I think, where Ohio State runs into a little bit of problems. I believe Texas, despite Caleb Downs being on defense for Ohio State, I believe Texas is the better defensive football, Texas is the better defensive football team, but Ohio State has the better weapons down the field. That is not a disrespect to Ryan Wingo. That is not a disrespect to any of the weapons that are out there for Texas. They've got good weapons, even though they lose some of their top pass catchers. How about a first-round draft pick in Matthew Golden, Isaiah Bond, like that? Some guys that were a little bit further down the production sheet, they are going to have to step up into bigger roles for Arch Manning. There's absolutely no question about that. So that's, I think, going to be the interior battle, is can Ohio State's playmakers at wide receiver on the outside make enough plays on this Texas defense to be able to do enough to get that early lead, keep that early lead, and sustain that throughout the course of the game. I think you're going to see a lot. I think there's a lot of unpredictability in this game. I think there's a lot of uncertainty in this game just because of some of the new parts on both of these teams. So I'm really intrigued to be able to see how that matchup all plays out within this matchup. Now, I am not completely confident in Ohio State's ability to consistently run the football against Ohio State. They've got a really good defensive line. Cole Brevard, the former Purdue Boilermaker, is in there, and that's just the way I kind of look at this Ohio State team. Like, this is a team that's going to maybe look more like Ohio State pre-Chip Kelly, where they're going to be looking downfield, looking to hit that home run ball a little bit more, which kind of circles back to the point I made to begin this thing, where it's like this offensive line has to play well against this vaunted Texas pass rush to be able to allow some of those big plays and some of those routes to be able to develop down the field. But C.J. Donaldson and Peoples running the ball against this Texas front, I'm not ultra confident. So I think Texas wants to get this Ohio State offense a little bit unbalanced. Even though they're going to have a dynamite passing attack, I think they want to get into situations where this Texas defensive line can pin their ears back, win the pass rush battles against some of these tackles, and then get into the face of Julian Sayin. I look to the other side. I'm a little bit more confident in Texas's ability to be balanced with Trey Wisner, who's coming back. I believe he was a 1,000-yard rusher, if I'm not mistaken, from a year ago. So I think they can be a little bit balanced. One other thing to keep an eye on, right, is Arch Manning's ability to scoot. Arch Manning's ability to run. How is that all going to play out? Because, man, that's like, I could very well see that throughout the course of the game, where it's a 3rd and 5, Ohio State, and late in the third quarter, early in the fourth quarter, where they got to come up with a big play. Arch gets outside the pocket, runs for 10 or 15 yards, and keeps the drive moving. I'm tremendously intrigued to see this new Ohio State defensive line. We know some of the names that, the Hamiltons of the world, the Sawyers of the world, the Tuimoloaus of the world. We know, those guys have been such an integral part of the DNA of Ohio State defensively. And, of course, they have a new defensive coordinator. Hey, are they going to be able to get pressure on Arch, or is he going to be able to sit back and throw the football? In games like this, it usually comes down to who can step up. Who can step up and make a big play? I got a lot of confidence in Ohio State that they have a playmaker. They have a guy in Caleb Downs. They have a guy in Jeremiah Smith that at certain points last season, when plays needed to be made, they made plays. Caleb Downs made the play in the semifinal against this very Texas team. So which offensive line plays better to give their young quarterback some more comfort in this game, I think is going to go a long way. I believe Texas comes out on top. I think they're just a little bit more well-rounded. I think they're better on the defensive side of the football, even though Ohio State has more weapons. It would not surprise me in and of the slightest that Ohio State could go off if Julian Sayin has time because of the multitude of weapons they have on the outside. It is going to be a fantastic showdown. Looking forward to this one going down in Columbus. It is the game that everybody has circled. It is the game that everybody has their eyes on. I'm Big Ten Ted. We'll see you in the next one.